Red Team back again. The window is closed, so let's begin. We will break down today's decisions on Breece Hall, Daniel Jones, and more as the countdown to free agency continues. The Rams know Matthew Stafford will return in 2026, but as for his contract, there's work to be done again. Steve White will be here to tell you where things stand with the reigning NFL MVP. There's 51 days left to the NFL draft, and Brian Baldinger cannot wait that long. Baldy's back with some combine ballers you'll be hearing a lot about in the weeks to come. Welcome inside with the Insiders. Alongside Ian Rappaport and Judy Batista, I am Tom Pelissero. 8 days away from the start of the new league year next Wednesday, which also means 8 days until Kyler Murray is officially a former Arizona Cardinal. Murray announcing the news himself earlier today, saying goodbye to Arizona on social media. The former #1 overall draft pick will be released after the league year begins next Wednesday, March 11th. He has close to $40 million in guaranteed money left on his contract, which prevents them from releasing him before that. Another $19.5 million would have become fully guaranteed had Murray still been on the roster next Sunday. Obviously, that is not going to happen, Ian, which sets up a situation that we've seen in the past, including with Russell Wilson, where a quarterback who's got tons of guaranteed money coming to him now can go and sign someplace else for next to nothing.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly this transition can happen from a franchise quarterback who's said to be a former franchise quarterback, fell out of favor with the organization. Essentially, they moved on from him during the season when they decided Jacoby Brissett was going to be their starter as Kyler Murray's foot injury, he's healthy now, but as Kyler Murray's foot injury was not healing like anybody had hoped. He goes from that to being one of the more intriguing free agents on the market. And part of the reason is what you explained, Tom. He's going to cost whichever team he lands nothing. It's going to be the minimum because the Arizona Cardinals are paying for most of the contract, so it is as low risk as can possibly be. And because, Judy, we have seen Kyler Murray play some excellent, impressive football over the last several years, there is going to be someone who believes they can get the best out of him and use him as their starter for several years. A place to keep an eye on would be the Minnesota Vikings. They want to bring in a veteran alongside J.J. McCarthy. Kyler Murray makes a lot of sense for Minnesota.
Yeah, Kyler is now in the pool of quarterbacks that we expect to be free agents, this sort of mid-level free agent group. Kirk Cousins, Tua Tagovailoa, Malik Willis will be in there too. Kyler Murray, when healthy, is the best of that group. Certainly, when he has been healthy and at his best with the Cardinals, he occasionally played up like an MVP level for a quarterback. The question is, can he stay healthy? Can the organization believe in him? Can he go to a place that will get the best out of him? As you pointed out, it's a pretty low-risk move for whatever team signs him. They're not going to have to pay all that much money for him, and the upside is potentially enormous. I expect that he will have a market, and as you pointed out, certainly keep an eye on the Vikings for this.
The upside is the key here. #1 pick in the 2019 draft. Kyler Murray is still only 28 years old, which means unlike a Kirk Cousins or a Geno Smith if he were released or a Joe Flacco, it's not just a short-term type of solution getting him on the minimum. If things go well, potentially some team could stumble onto their future franchise quarterback as well. You take a look at the numbers that Kyler Murray put up during his time in Arizona. He was a two-time Pro Bowl quarterback there, threw for over 20,000 yards, 121 touchdowns, did make the playoffs once. It was a very brief appearance in the playoffs, but certainly somebody who we've seen have production at the NFL level. Let's bring in our Brian Baldinger and Steve White for a little bit more on this story. Steve, you've covered him in the NFC West for a number of years now. What do you make of Kyler Murray at this stage and where potentially there could be the right fit?
Well, look, Tom, he's an exciting player when he's on the field, but you talked about, and you saw on that graphic, he's missed 30 games in his career. 27 of those have come after he signed that big $230 million extension in 2022. We know he only played in 5 games last year, so the durability question is the question when it comes to Kyler Murray. But you talk about the size of the contract. Why wouldn't a team like the Jets or Minnesota or even Miami pursue him? It all depends on the style of play that the coach wants to play And if Kyler Murray, who plays off schedule a lot, Baldy, fits that style or even wants to come in and compete, then maybe you take a risk on him because, again, if he stays healthy, he's a dynamic player. One last thing, Baldy. 2024, when he played all 17 games, Arizona was 8-9. That's the best record he had as a full-time starter, except for the 1 year when he had the winning record in 2021 when he set the big number for the contract.
Steve, all the things you said are absolutely true. Being 28 years old, as Tom mentioned, and the upside is this, is the talent that made him the number one pick in the draft 7 years ago is still there. He still has a big arm. He still has mobility. He still has accuracy. I mean, he's completed 67% of his passes over these 7 years. And albeit the roster around him has not been great at any point. And so, like, the talent that, that came into the league with this is still very much there. Now, you can say, okay, the injuries have kind of taken a little bit out of him, and I think it has. He doesn't run quite the same as he did when he first came into this league, but he is going to return from this Liz Frank injury. I feel like wherever he goes, I don't know that anybody's going to hand him a job. I don't think that's going to happen. But he's going to get a chance to compete in a number of different places if they decide to sign him. And Kyler Murray competing with the talent that he has, he's got a chance to win some jobs.
A lot of talent, also some inconsistencies, kind of like Baldy's Mike. We'll get that fixed before you come back, Baldy, in just a little bit. Steve, thank you very much as well. This is also the day in which the franchise and transition tag window closed. Only 4 tags total, 2 today. The franchise tag for Breece Hall, the transition tag for Daniel Jones. And focusing on Daniel Jones, this was an ongoing type of a situation here that the Colts were working through because they've also got one of the top free agents to be in wide receiver, Alec Pierce, as well. You can only use 1 tag. It then came down to you're not going to allow the quarterback out the door to use the franchise or the transition tag. Well, in the case of Daniel Jones, and based on where they felt like his market were at, they were willing to take a little bit of a risk here. But the franchise tag, if he signs an offer sheet someplace else, then you get 2 first-round picks in return if you don't match it. For the transition tag, which is about $6 million less, you do not get any compensation if Jones ends up signing a new deal elsewhere. But at the same time, the baseline that is set on the transition number versus the franchise number, a little bit more palatable, Judy, for where they ultimately expect the Daniel Jones contract to come in if and when they're able to finalize something long term.
Yeah, this is a calculated risk by the Colts, but it's really not a tremendous risk by the Colts because certainly they expect the market to be at a certain point. And perhaps it's a little bit dampened for Daniel Jones because he's coming off the Achilles injury. So if a new team were to sign him, he's not going to be available for a large chunk of the offseason to get acclimated with that new team. So they clearly are not expecting that the market is going to come in and blow Daniel Jones away and then they won't be able to match. They expect to keep Daniel Jones. They want to keep Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones wants to be there. Also, that is tied into Alec Pierce, their wide receiver, who is going to be a free agent unless they can get a deal done with him in the next few days. So we will see where this goes with Daniel Jones. Again, there is a risk that they wouldn't match a deal and they would lose Daniel Jones and also not get compensation. But I feel like the risk is pretty minimal for the Indianapolis Colts here.
Yeah, and there is incentive for the Colts, Judy, to do a long-term deal with Daniel Jones sooner rather than later. They're right up against it with the salary cap. They can restructure some guys. They can figure this out. But if they do a long-term deal with Daniel Jones, their cap situation gets a lot easier, and that might be pretty important because, as you mentioned, Alec Pierce going to be a free agent now. Now, the Colts made an aggressive move to try to sign him before the franchise tag deadline. That was never going to happen. He was not going to sign unless he knew for sure who his quarterback was going to be. Now he knows it's Daniel Jones, but timing really is not on the Colts side here. Today is Tuesday, right? And so in like 5 days or 4 days, whatever the math may be, the tampering window begins. Players never get this close to free agency and don't at least entertain offers. So hard to imagine he does any deal until at least the end of the week before he's going to find out what's out there. Besides George Pickens, who now is a franchise-tagged member of the Dallas Cowboys, This is one of the top free agents, regardless of position, certainly the top wide receiver. He's going to get a huge deal, and the Colts are now not competing with themselves, but the entire rest of the NFL.
The free agent negotiating window opens on Monday, which is 6 days after Tuesday. Ian, good to see that your brain is already broken and free agency frenzy has not even yet kicked off. We also had the franchise tag applied to running back Breece Hall. Judy, there had been speculation about a potential transition tag, but the goal for the Jets was always keep Breece Hall in New York. The franchise tag does that in a much stronger way and at a number that if you're Breece Hall, you can do worse than playing it out if you have to, 1 year and over $14 million.
Yeah, you remember they did not trade him when they were trading everybody else at the trade deadline last year. And Aaron Glenn said, well, they wanted him. They want to build around a player like Breece Hall. So the franchise tag keeps him there. They still would like to get perhaps a long-term deal done. I would expect this to go all the way down to July. And actually, it behooves Breece Hall to wait and see how the market gets set, because there are an awful lot of running backs available now. The Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker, is one of them. We've got guys who are coming up for big extensions. So certainly, if he waits, the market may take a big jump, and he can take advantage of that. But at the very least, we would expect that Breece Hall will be with the New York Jets for at least one more season.
Timing is absolutely on Breece Hall's side. You mentioned those big-name running backs. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, due for a massive deal with the Detroit Lions, part of the reason why they traded David Montgomery. That is one. You have Bijan Robinson with the Atlanta Falcons, also eligible for a contract extension. Someone, they would like to redo. The longer Breece Hall waits, the more the price tag goes up. So no doubt, at least he's going to get through free agency, see one of these guys, see if someone comes in there, maybe beats 14, hard to imagine, but you never know. And then his price tag only goes up. Look, it's pretty clear for the Jets. They would have liked to transition tag him. If you're in the position the Jets are in, obviously it's been a struggle. They have plenty of cap space, probably a little more than they wanted to spend. Just keep your best players on the team and move forward with them. That is what they did with Breece Hall earlier today.
So once again, to reiterate, negotiating window opens in 6 days on Monday. New league year begins in 8 days next Wednesday, March 11th. At that point, you have to be in cap compliance. And if you're holding a tag on Daniel Jones, George Pickens, Breece Hall, Kyle Pitts, the entire tag hits the cap next Wednesday. Certainly some motivation if those teams are going to work out long-term deals. We got a ton to get into throughout this show, including another look back at the NFL Combine. Brian Baldinger, Baldy's Big Ballers. Hopefully a big new mic for him as well. He'll be back in just a little bit. We will also talk about Max Crosby. What does the future hold for the Raiders superstar? More on that coming up right after this on The Insiders. Our top story tonight, Kyler Murray will soon be a former Arizona Cardinal. Murray announcing the expected news on social media earlier today, saying goodbye to the Cardinals, who will release him after the new league year begins next Wednesday, March 11th. Kyler due over $36 million fully guaranteed in 2026. Would have had another $19.5 million in 2027 become fully guaranteed if he were still on the roster as of March 16th. That is not going to happen. Kyler now set to become a fascinating free agent, and based on that guaranteed money, most likely sign somewhere for a minimum salary. Today was also the deadline to apply franchise and transition tags. 4 players in all got tagged. Kyle Pitts, George Pickens, those happened last week. The Jets using the franchise tag on Breece Hall. The Colts using the transition tag on quarterback Daniel Jones. First time in several decades that a QB has gotten that tag. Ian, one name we do not see on this list is the Bengals pass rusher Trey Hendrickson, which comes as great relief to Trey Hendrickson finally out of Cincinnati.
Yeah, freedom for Trey Hendrickson. It has been a long saga for the star pass rusher and the Cincinnati Bengals going back several years. A couple trade requests, a couple contract adjustments, anything the Bengals could do to keep him in a Cincinnati uniform without giving the long-term fully guaranteed money that he would want. Now, he ended up playing last year, had surgery to end the season, did not finish the season on the field with the Cincinnati Bengals. He is fully healthy now, and this chapter is officially over because he is going to be free. Now, there's going to be a lot of teams interested in Trey Hendrickson. I would expect his old defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, who's with the Colts, to have interest. There are going to be several others, but the main thing here is one of the top edge rushers on the market, not going back to Cincy, and they are going to be able to spend on several other pieces to improve their defense.
Well, and they certainly need to improve their defense. At some point, we can go through the whole breakdown of how Trey Hendrickson is now finally free and the Bengals are getting absolutely nothing in return. But let's focus on Trey Hendrickson here. He's 31 years old, and when he is healthy, he is still wildly productive. He was injured last year, but the 2 previous seasons, he had 17.5 sacks each of those seasons. So he is still very productive as long as he can stay on the field. There should be a market for him. He has waited a very, very long time to be a free agent. Finally, he is going to be. Can't wait to see where he lands.
There could be trades. Of course, Max Crosby, one we've talked a lot about. There could be other pass rushers who end up getting released. Bradley Chubb is going to be released after the start of the league year. But if we're talking about unrestricted free agents, Ian, there is nobody better in this market than Trey Hendrickson.
No doubt about it. Not the only great player, though, that did not receive the franchise tag. There are a couple others. Alec Pierce, we talked about, top receiver on the market. Super Bowl MVP. Kenneth Walker going to have a really nice market. Travis Etienne as well. Odafe Owe, one of the best trades made during the season. Actually, that was a mutually beneficial trade. He also did not receive the franchise tag. So really, as I bring in our good friend Steve Weish, this sets the table for what the next 10 days or so is going to look like, Steve, right? I mean, franchise tags are over. Those guys are going to be in their own separate compartment, going to do deals if they possibly can. But we now know who is free. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of these stars that are not tagged. Why don't you take me through the tight end position for players not named Kyle Pitts who didn't get the tag?
Yeah, Ian, and this is a group that's got some big names to it. I mean, you've got guys like David Njoku and Dallas Goedert. But let's look at Isaiah Likely from the Baltimore Ravens. He's coming off of a career low in a lot of numbers because he missed a few games because he had an early season foot surgery. But he is someone incredibly talented, known mostly as a receiver. But you talk to people around the league, he's improved as a blocker. He's somebody who could be very available. You hear him tied to some teams like the Washington Commanders. With Pitts off the market, Likely could be the top tight end available. Another tight end that could be available, Dallas Goedert, 31 years old with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's somebody we're kind of waiting to see what his future he does with the team if he wants to re-sign there. But we know he's a big physical receiver, a very good blocker, but he's also the pusher on the tush push. He's a guy who lands up behind Jalen Hurts and pushes him into the end zone. So Goddard at 31, also available. And also another big name. Let's go to former Cleveland tight end David Njoku. Now, there were some people who thought that if the Falcons let Kyle Pitts hit the market, that Njoku could rejoin Kevin Stefanski. But here's Njoku, a bigger tight end. We know he is a receiving threat, but again, he is coming off of a low with some of his numbers. He had very few targets last year as he kind of got phased out of the offense in that dismal Browns offense. But he could be somebody with an accomplished track record who could help out another team, especially with these teams that are going to multiple use tight ends. And now another tight end who has quietly been doing work for years down in Tampa Bay who hit the market, that is Cade Otton, a very solid player in the blocking and the run games. He's somebody, again, he can do it at a lot of different levels. You know, you saw him there on the inside hook on this reception. He can get a little bit deeper, a fairly reliable player. And this is something I'm a little surprised he got to the market with the franchise tag number only being around $15 million. And as vital as Otton is to that offense, so he's somebody who could be in big demand when free agency opens here.
Yeah, I actually wondered if the Bucs would re-up Cade Otton last year. Kind of ran out of time a little bit doing some other guys. He now is going to be free, as are several really good inside linebackers. You know, I was just in Indy for a week. There's a lot of really good inside linebacker prospects there performing incredibly well. Pretty good free agent crop, too. Why don't you take me through some of the biggest names at this position?
Yeah, a lot of good names here because this is one because the edge rushers, that franchise tag number was above $25 million.
Yeah.
So that's why you're seeing someone like Jaguars inside linebacker Devin Lloyd, who is coming off of a string of 4 really good years, but really had a bounce back year last year after coming back from missing some time. He had some, we know he's very good in coverage. He can run, a good sideline to sideline guy, but also a very good run stopper. Someone's going to get a very good, athletic, cerebral linebacker in Devin Lloyd if he does not re-sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But as you said, Ian, a lot of good young draft prospects could determine how much money he gets in free agency. Let's go to another free agent who's a very good and productive player for the Atlanta Falcons. That's Caden Ellis. This is somebody who is a true inside linebacker, but he is also someone who is turned loose in rushing situations, not so much from the edge, more from the interior. He got phased out a little bit, but again, that number was so big on the franchise tag number, they opted to let him go, especially with the emergence of Divine Diablo at the other inside linebacker spot. But Caden Ellis has been highly productive for two teams, the New Orleans Saints after a slow start, and then the Atlanta Falcons. So again, a true three-down linebacker with Caden Ellis. A lot of good inside linebackers going to hit free agency. But Ian, as you mentioned once again, when you see people like Arvell Reese and Styles, who just blew up the combine last week, that draft class of inside backers is going to make this free agent market really intriguing to see who goes fast and how much money these guys get.
That's a great call. Not a ton of them, but what there is a lot of really, really good players. Caden Ellis, you know what you're getting. He is going to fill up the stat sheet, as does our good friend Steve White. Steve, thank you very much for hanging out with us. Great stuff as always. I mentioned Indianapolis. Brian Baldinger has taken a big-time look at some of these studs from the Combine. He's going to give us his ballers from the week. Coming up next.
Combine is in the books, and Charles Davis has a new mock draft out. You can see it over at NFL.com. No surprise, Fernando Mendoza at 1. Jets go edge with David Bailey. And then how about that, number 3? Cardinals starting out the Mike LaFleur era with running back Jeremiah Love. What do you think, Jeremiah? He caught up with our Stacey Dales.
Your humility is just so impressive. What has come up in these meetings from these teams this week as you get ready for this draft?
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of coaches, they watch the film, they see the film, and we talk about blocking schemes and how I progress through the blocking and stuff like that, but most of the meetings were just about me as a person. You know, they wanted to get to know me more off the field and just what motivated me and what drove me to just come this far. We
cannot wait to see where you're going to get drafted. Where do you think you're going to get drafted?
I don't know. I don't know. Top, maybe top 10, top 5, hopefully.
And you're going to get
a lot of people saying the Chiefs or the Saints or the Giants. I mean, all I got to say is I'd be blessed to go anywhere.
What you eating tonight?
I'm going to get me a chocolate shake from Chick-fil-A, no whipped cream, cherry, all that. I've been craving a chocolate shake since I've been training in OC, so I finally get to enjoy it.
Go get it, bud. Great job.
You work out like that, you can have whatever you want for dinner once, and then it's right back to the grind. Welcome back to the Insiders. Tom Pelissero, Brian Baldinger here with Baldy's Combine Ballers. And we have to start, Baldy, with Kenyon Sadiq, fastest tight end we've seen at the Combine since 2003. What did you see from him?
You know, he was the crown jewel of the tight ends coming in. And I remember just watching him warm up before he ran the 40 and how smooth he was. But I sat in the end zone and I watched this. I didn't want to look at the clock, Tom. I just wanted to, in my mind, say, that was a 4.4, and it became a 4.39, his second 40. Just so smooth and so explosive right out of the blocks. But just really the way that he moved. And that's really what this whole scouting process is, Tom, is the study of movement. And that's what you see from him. He's also an excellent downfield blocker. He's very strong. He's very powerful. You know, he's got tremendous leaping ability. You know, 43.5 inches. Put the ball on top of the rim and let him go get it. But all those things stood out. In addition to those incredible times at his size, weight, and that speed, faster than Vernon Davis ran when he came out of Maryland.
Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles, another one of the standouts of Combine Week. For a guy who weighs over 240 pounds, Baldy, he does things that we never have seen a player do at that size. Charles has him going number 5 to the Giants, along with pretty much everybody else. What impressed you most about Sonny Styles?
Well, I mean, his length. You know, he's 6'5", you know, he's just in the passing lanes. But you watch you watch his size, and at 244 pounds to be able to run that 4.46 right there. But he also had a very fast 10-yard split time of 1.51. And then, he's jumping to the top of the backboard right there at 43.5 inches. Long jump. And then just the movement right here. He covers a lot of ground. He covers it quickly. You want to put him in the middle and build your defense around Sonny Styles. And I think if you protect him, let him just go run and clean up, he could put up some tremendous numbers. And in addition to just being in the passing lane and making things difficult to layer any ball over the top in the middle of the field.
Certainly the top edge rusher off the board is going to be a great point of debate here over these next 51 days. Baldy, David Bailey, you just saw him number 2 on Charles's mock draft. There seems to be some momentum here, especially after the way Bailey worked out.
No doubt. I mean, 251 pounds, and, he ran a 4.5 140. And 4.5 was the official time. And, his start is so electric, and it shows up on tape all the time. All these tests do for David Bailey is confirm what we watched at Texas Tech this year. He gave every good offensive tackle he played against this year fits because of his takeoff. And I don't want to compare him to a future Hall of Famer, but he's very, very similar to what Von Miller was coming out of Texas A&M, 15, 16 years ago. From a size, weight, speed standpoint, I think he's going to be an electric player off the edge. And I thought this combine really confirmed a lot of the things that we saw week in, week out on tape with that fierce Texas Tech defensive line.
It wouldn't be a Baldy's Ballers segment without an offensive lineman. Who do you like, Baldy? Who jumped out at you?
I like a bunch of them, but Spencer Fano from Utah, you just look at his overall size, weight, speed, and, he's played left tackle at Utah. He's played right tackle this past season right here. But, when you can run a 4.9 40 like he did and be able to move like this at his size, 311 pounds, he's very, very similar now to what Trent Williams was coming out of Oklahoma back in 2010. He moves a lot like that. Now, Trent Williams has done it at the highest level for a long, long time. But he's got that type of measurables right now. I think he's got to learn the game a little bit better, get a little bit more physical. But from a standpoint of movement, size, the ability, it's all there. He showed it in Indy. He showed it at Utah against elite competition. And so Spencer Fano is a guy that you can't leave off this chart of Baldy's big ballers.
All these guys we're talking about are first-round picks, probably high first-round picks. Give me a total wild card, Baldy, who stood out in Indianapolis that you think helped his cause.
It started for me at the Senior Bowl watching Taylor Green, Tom, honestly. He's almost 6'6". He's got over 40 starts at Boise State and Arkansas. But, we don't see quarterbacks running a 4.36. Maybe Lamar, maybe Kyler, back when they were coming out of college, could run a 4.36. And then you could jump like that, the explosiveness right here. And he had a big arm. He's got to learn how to throw the ball. He's got to, I think if somebody drafts him and really works with them and really coaches them up, the talent is there. Now, there's a lot that he needs to work on. But, layering throws and not just throwing fastballs. But from a talent standpoint, Taylor Green is a guy that just really popped. He popped in some of these throws, some of the throws down the field, the outs. He's got a cannon on him, and he can throw it a mile. I just think he's got to get refined and get well coached, and maybe we could find a real star in Taylor Green down the road.
It was the All-Star games, then the Combine, the third prong of the pre-draft process is the Pro Days, which we'll be covering extensively here on NFL Network. Baldy, great stuff as always from you. Take a look at some of the upcoming dates here. You see Clemson, Oklahoma, USC. Those are kicking off next week. Not listed here, Indiana, which is where we will see Fernando Mendoza working out right there April 1st. One of the only top players who's
The free agency frenzy is here, and NFL Network is your home for all the signings, starting Monday through Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. Every deal, every trade, every surprise, wall-to-wall coverage on all 32 NFL teams. I hope I still have a voice. Don't miss a move when it all kicks off Monday March 9th. And we now know at least one team playing. You know what? Ian, take it away.
Judy, I got it. We'll start with this one. The Falcons are playing a game in Madrid. We got 9 international games so far. They've named several of the participants. We know Madrid's getting one. The Falcons are the team there. Here are their home opponents as we try to figure out who they potentially could play. Doesn't sound like those 3 in blue, so you have to pick from some of the others. We flashed it quickly for a second. Our own Mike Garafolo, who is off today, hanging on the beach, drinking a Mai Tai, posted this on the old Twitter machine earlier today, essentially saying that Dallas Goedert is likely a free agent. Eagles would like to bring him back, but he is going to have a market, one of several key veteran tight ends who are going to get really nice deals. As is Tyler Biadasz. The Commanders officially released him today. We've known for several days they were going to release him. Was supposed to do it yesterday. Ended up doing it today. I expect him to find a home relatively quickly, certainly starter caliber center. And then the Seattle Seahawks issued some exclusive rights tenders to Ty Okada and George Halani in an effort to show Tom that no transaction is too small.
A surprise in Chicago today. Drew Dahlman, their starting center, a player who just a year ago was one of the top prizes for free agency, informed the team he plans to retire at the age of 27. Certainly, that could be your Tyler Biadasz landing spot as that moves forward. Meanwhile, Nick Folk is not retiring. 41 years old. Kind of looks like Marvin the Martian in that helmet. The most accurate kicker in the NFL over the past 3 years. He's back for more, a 19th NFL season, and does plan to continue kicking. Will be one of the top options available. Hey, we got the insiders all this week, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Tons of news, trades, potential signings. Judy was trying to tell you all that, and then her voice went away. We'll see if she's still got some left after this.